This is an RNZ podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Morris. Well, some weeks we're spoilt for choice at the movies. Other weeks, like this one, there seems to be none. So all you can do is suck it up and look a bit harder. What about the streaming services? And among the usual routine comedies and foreign language thrillers are a couple that seem promising enough, unless their trailers are totally lying to us.
I thought I'd be happier at 40.
You are happy, and I'm not 40, asshole.
You don't look happy. I feel like you're having a midlife crisis.
Well, I feel like you're high on mushrooms, so you don't know shit.
Which, of course, they are. My Old Ass looks like a clever what-if comedy about a young woman meeting herself 20 years later. I was mostly lured in because I like the inimitable Aubrey Plaza, who, according to the trailer, is the lead. Well, not really. I got equally sucker-punched by a Netflix actioner aptly named Havoc.
What brings you boys here? We didn't want to miss out on all the fun. This is my town!
I'm a bit sick of the tired mumblings of Tom Hardy, but I do like Timothy Olyphant on the strength of two TV series, Deadwood and Justified. However, it turns out once again the trailer overstated Oliphant's presence in Havoc. Ah well. Also, off the beaten track are a number of Kiwi films with far less ballyhoo behind them.
Let's suppose I offered you a truth that could give you redemption, but in return it destroys you. Would you take it or leave it?
These are films that couldn't get backing from the New Zealand Film Commission, so went it alone. And the reason you've not heard of the Bostrom Scenario, Forgive Us All and The People We Love is their minimal budgets only guaranteed they'd get made. There was just nothing left for publicity.
I'm a writer. Short stories mainly.
Oh, okay. Like, as a career?
We think you show a lot of promise, but it didn't make me feel anything.
Well, a little later, we'll talk to the man behind The People We Love. Mike Smith is one of our most successful TV directors with a distinguished career telling other people's stories. And now he wants to tell one of his own.
I saw you at the cafe.
Something's happening, eh? With your mum. You're trying to sort out everybody else's relationships so you don't have to sort out your own.
So what are the pros and cons of going independent? Do we put enough effort into finding out what our audiences want to see? And why do we make so few romantic comedies despite audiences clearly liking them? Well, speaking of audiences, let's head to the streaming services.
Tell me everything. Where do we live? Do we have kids? Are we, so happy?
Did you honestly think that you were going to be married and have multiple kids in your dream job by the time you were 40? Oh, you did? Okay.
My Old Ass, tucked away on Prime Video, looked promising enough. Well, that's because the trailer kept promising a different movie. Elliot is just about to turn 18 and takes off with her two besties for a psychedelic evening on the old magic mushrooms.
To Elliot.
No, not the whole bag.
May you experience a new level of consciousness tonight.
Oh my God. Are you guys tripping? I don't feel anything.
That's because we don't tolerate drugs well.
Hey, freak.
But who should pop up but someone older yet strangely familiar? It's herself 20 years later and played by the entertainingly sarcastic Aubrey Plaza. Frankly, an evening of Plaza being mean to her teenage self sounds rather fun.
Who are you?
Elliot. Dude, I'm you.
You're me.
What's up?
I don't have a gap in my teeth.
Yeah, wear your retainer. Left boob, 1 cup smaller than the right.
Okay.
But that's not quite what this is. Unlike the trailer, which is about 80% Aubrey, who calls herself My Old Ass when she contacts her younger self, if you were wondering, this is mostly about young Elliot. It's a variation on If I Knew Then What I Know Now. In this case, young Elliot is already having doubts about her girlfriend, so is looking for tips about life and romance.
I know Mom can be annoying, but be nice to her and go hang out with your brothers.
Ow, Max!
Also, can you avoid anyone named Chad?
Good morning, Elliot. Have you met Chad?
Since her preferences have so far always been towards women, the advice to avoid someone called Chad seems a bit redundant. But in the increasing absence of Elliot's magical older self, my old ass drifts into pretty familiar territory. Essentially, Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird without Greta Gerwig. What we really want is more Aubrey Plaza.
You were so lucky. Life will never be the same as it is right now. Just take my advice and we'll be fine.
Oh my God!
I think.
The younger self is played by the cutely named Maisie Stella, who actually carries whatever point my old ass might have. In other words, the trailer was for fans of Aubrey Plaza, the film is for fans of Maisie Stella, whose next film, incidentally, is called Standing on the Shoulders of Kitties. Just saying.
Can we kiss?
No.
What? Can I at least touch my old ass?
Oh my God, you need to be locked up.
Meanwhile, an ultra-violent piece of Havoc, it's actually called Havoc, is coming at you on Netflix. One for the John Wick crowd, it's full of, I quote, flashy gunfire ballet and rustic hand-to-hand explosions of violence by the master of this sort of thing, Welshman Gareth Evans.
What you got for me? Oh.
You got footage of our suspect. Do you know him?
Evans is all about getting his violence up close and personal. He's best known for a couple of spectacularly bloody martial arts films, both called The Raid and set in Indonesia. Well, this one's set in an unnamed American city, actually Cardiff, and it stars Tom Hardy.
You're not going to get out of this city alive without my help.
The glowering Hardy has been promising big things for years in films like Inception, The Dark Knight Rises and Mad Max, but he's never quite made it to the A-League, despite or because of his enthusiasm for method acting. Here he plays a jaded homicide detective confronted by a murder.
I just came from a crime scene. 9 bodies.
A murder? What am I saying? There are dozens of them, mostly Oriental and heavily dusted in cocaine. The prime suspect is handed to Tom on a plate, the son of a former gangland kingpin turned politician.
My son is not a killer.
This kid was public enemy number 1.
Your son just started a gang war. They just want to shoot him dead. That's the end of his story.
I make one phone call. You go down for life. Get him back.
Well, I still like Forrest Whitaker, even if Tom Hardy is starting to wear out his welcome. And I really like Timothy Olyphant, who wears his old-school Hollywood stardom lightly, mostly on TV. Apart from anything, he can be funny, unlike Hardy.
I'm gonna get you out.
It ain't up for discussion.
There are people out there looking for you.
But the star of the film is neither Olyphant nor Hardy. It's writer-director Gareth Evans. And like this sort of thing or not, Evans is clearly brilliant at any movie called Havoc. For a start, he takes his time setting up the rival forces. I hesitate to call them characters as such. Young punks, ruthless triad killers, cops, dirty and clean.
Don't forget, I know what you did.
You have no idea what I did.
The first half is punctuated with some bits of action, including a car chase that's terminated when someone heaves a washing machine through the windscreen of a police car. But Evans is saving his powder for the second half, which is entirely action.
This is your final warning. Pull over now.
They were trying to escape. Kill them all.
Well, there's no point judging Havoc as drama, despite Tom Hardy's pretensions, or even as an action-adventure, despite Timothy Oliphant's star presence. It's purely physical, visual and visceral, equal parts kung fu, Grand Theft Auto and Bolshoi ballet. And once again, don't let the trailer suggest it's anything else.
It looks like you guys shoot up pretty bad, Jay.
Well, it's kind of hard to dodge a washing machine.
For New Zealand films, these are the best of times and the worst of times. The New Zealand Film Commission is certainly patting itself on the back over the phenomenal success of too hanky feel-good movie Tina, which is one of the biggest hits we've had for years.
They're a bunch of spoiled rich kids that have everything they could ever want.
You don't know them.
You can't just throw some Sunday school group together and sing Kumbaya.
You felt that I could give these kids something. This is that something.
But what about the other commission-backed films? Well, middling to terrible if you go by the box office. The $6 million budget rest-home horror film, The Rule of Jenny Penn, scored less than 30,000 at home, despite good reviews.
Who rules? Jenny Penn.
That's right.
We don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
Other recent expensive flops included Bad Behaviour, Never Look Away, The Moon is Upside Down, and medical drama A Mistake. They all struggled to make tens of thousands after spending millions.
Our daughter is in the morgue.
The infection was too much for her body. It's a bad outcome. She was likely never going to make it.
Tina made headlines when it found its audience, but so did another film, a little independent documentary about Christchurch architects Miles Warren and Morris Marnie.
There might be a moment in the process when you think, my God, it's going to work.
This is a case where New Zealand led the world in concert hall design.
Morris and I did remarkably well with very little help from the Film Commission. It played in Christchurch cinemas for months. So, is that the way to go? This month sees several films that couldn't get any traction at the Commission, so, like the Little Red Hen, they've decided to do it themselves.
You're not going through that forest.
You'll be torn to pieces.
If I can save you from doing what I had to, I'm going into that forest with you.
Many of them are enthusiastic first-timers making monster movies and buddy capers. But one is that rare thing in New Zealand, a romantic comedy. Or perhaps a sentimental romance might be a more accurate description of The People We Love, written, directed and produced by TV veteran Mike Smith of Brokenwood Mysteries fame.
He wrote about us, about what we were going through.
I am trying to think of a writer who hasn't pillaged their family life in the name of art.
Mike, it is rare, isn't it? Why don't we do romances, unlike everywhere else in the world?
I really don't know. Because, as you say, Simon, everywhere else in the world, romance, whether it's young romance or older romance, is a staple. And we literally don't do them. And I wonder if it's a kind of snobbery on the part of filmmakers.
But, I'm not even talking about a romance. I'm talking about a romantic element in these things. There's a tiny bit in Tina, which is one of its many good things.
I think Tina and its resulting success is just terrific. Partly because it says to filmmakers and perhaps the Commission and the audiences that we can make feel-good films that have something to say. And that's kind of what we were trying to do with The People We Love, is that there's two romances, a young one that's gone wrong and an older couple who their relationship goes wrong, and they try and fix it. And meantime, there's a young writer who's part of the family who's writing about it, and that causes all kinds of complications as well. What I wanted to do was to do a film about two types of romantic relationship, but to do it intelligently, to do it with try and get some insight and to do it about people that hopefully the audience recognise. You know, this is not American archetypes. This is our Kiwi folk at home.
There are certain other elements, all-purpose, can't-fail elements that New Zealand films tend to stay away from. Aside from we don't end on a clinch, that never happens, there's very rarely a car chase or a ticking clock or any of these kind of really boneheaded cliches that are the things that drive movies along. I mean, we're not talking necessarily about a movie that's only about romance, but the fact is that even in the biggest drama, there is some idea of human connection going on there, which we tend to stay away from.
I really don't. I mean, in the end, in that situation, I tend not to necessarily point at the commission. I think it's the filmmakers. The filmmakers want to make darker, more, I don't know. I worry in the end they're trying to teach us a lesson. I remember years ago talking to someone who said when he goes to the movie, he has a tough life. He works hard, he's got dramas at home, he wants to be entertained. I worry that what we tend to forget in New Zealand, and there's another great example of this, Taika's films are all entertaining, and he's had huge success, and he utterly deserved. Nobody seems to look at that and go, why don't we do more of that? I think we just, somehow down here, we tend to avoid all the lessons that people overseas tend to stick by. And I don't know what's wrong with a happy ending. My film's got a happy ending. I don't know why you shouldn't do them.
Another thing that your film has, Mike, and this kind of goes back in a way to your huge experience in TV, is it's got a dynamite cast. I mean, you've got people in there who can do it. And I think that we tend to forget how important a good cast can be.
Absolutely. We had a premiere of the movie last night out at the Shoreline in Waikanae, because that's where the film was made. And I was reminded yet again, Neil and Alison came down from Auckland to come to the premiere.
Now, this is Neil Ray, who's the star of Broken Wood, and Alison Bruce, who plays his wife.
And also, she was also in TNR, and she's had a long and brilliant history in New Zealand drama. But I just looked at those performances again, and you just go, without really clever, in-depth performances, you don't really have a film. I mean, it's that old, we talk about directors sometimes, and there are many directors who say 80% of my job is done when I cast the film. If you get the right people and you've got a good script, directing it is easy.
The official releases now are spending quite substantial budgets now in New Zealand terms on big deal overseas stars, and judging by the box office figures, I'm not seeing an awful lot of result from these.
But you look at the films, New Zealand-produced films that are in the top 10 box office. None of them have stars in them. They've got Temawera Morrison. They've got
Ian Mune.
They've got Rena Owen. They've got people who became big stars of these terrific films they were in. But I agree, I don't know that importing stars into New Zealand films automatically means good box office. It doesn't seem to. Their stated attitude recently seems to be that we're going to put more money into fewer films. And I can't help but think that may not be the best idea, because, anybody trying to pick what's going to be a successful film, it's immensely difficult.
Right.
3 out of 4,
it's a fluky
3 out
thing.
of 4 are going to fail.
Right.
I refer back to years ago, they had a scheme where they were doing some bigger budget films, but they had a scheme where they did films for $250,000. And some of those didn't work. But one of them was, I've forgotten his name. It was Housebound. He made that for $250,000. It's a terrific film.
Fantastic, yeah.
And he's gone on to, bigger and better things. I mean, there's a Samoan filmmaker in Auckland who made a film called We Are Cousins.
Three Wise Cousins.
Three Wise Cousins.
That's Stallone.
And it's a terrific film.
Fantastic. And they're made really cheaply.
That film did really, really well and resonated with his community. But what I come back to is that if New Zealand films aren't resonating strongly with the New Zealand audience, do we have a film industry? Or are we is it just a film school?
There's a whole string of films that are coming out this month, including your own, but they've got just enough money to make the film, and they're really enthusiastic, and a lot of these people are first-time directors, but it's very difficult if you haven't got any money left in the kitty to actually sell it.
I got to the end of the shoot, which was tough enough, and then I went, phew, we've done that. The battle was only just beginning. I'm going to put in a word here for local independent cinema owners, because we tried to get proper distribution and we couldn't get it. We approached at least a dozen distributors and they all declined. And I pressed them to say, should I recut my film? What's wrong with it? I couldn't get any understanding. But with the local cinema owners, we've got about 30 of them on board, which is probably the majority of small independent cinema owners. They are out there in the community. Owning a cinema now is a tough game, because there's so much competition. And yet 30 of them are willing to take a chance on this little movie. And I think it's partly because we've got actors in it that they think their audience will know, but they also are hopeful that the film will reach their audience. And it's partly because a lot of their audience is older, especially older women, and that's definitely an audience for my film.
Well, in a way, that's an audience that's keeping a lot of these cinemas going.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, weirdly enough, the process of trying to find a distributor and trying to get into festivals was difficult and demoralising. The process of getting it onto local screens has been, with the enormous help of my wife, who's a much better salesperson than I am. Sharon gets on the phone and rings them up, and they are really responsive. I really admire them, and most of them have been really helpful and willing to give it a go, which is all you ask, really.
To finish up, are we getting the balance right about the films that we get behind? I'm not just necessarily talking about the commission, I'm talking about people writing films and so on.
Well, I can't speak for other filmmakers, I suppose. But the thing I go back to is that list of the 10 top money-making films. Most of them are feel-good films. But the other thing is, in my group of friends and with my daughters who were an inspiration for the film, romance and relationships are incredibly important. I don't think we're any less romantic than other nations. We may be a little less extrovert about it, but romance and good relationships and marriage and all those things are just as important to us. And the other thing is that I believe that Kiwis are as funny as hell. We like a joke. We enjoy humour. We enjoy banter. And I don't think those things are being reflected. I think we're reflecting, as Sam Neill so wisely said a few years ago, we're still a bit stuck in the cinema of unease. And I'm not sure that we should be. I think there should be other kinds of films. There needs to be more, forgive me for this, there needs to be more diversity in the kind of films we make. That's what we need to think about more.
And you can hear the long version of that interview with writer-director Mike Smith on the At The Movies website, rnz.co.nz/podcast/atthemovies. Mike's independent film, The People We Love, opens in 30 cinemas around the country this week. Beautifully shot on the Kapiti Coast and Wellington's Cuba Street, it boasts that rare thing in New Zealand films, a happy ending. And speaking of which, it's time to go. I'm Simon Morris, and I hope you'll join me at the movies, same time next week.